So I'm going to cover the AI side of stuff later, but I want to get into this first of all, which is around the data fabric. It's something you've heard mentioned a lot today. And from my point of view, it's really interesting. I don't know if anyone's seen it, because I don't know how publicized it's been yet, but Gartner have released something this week around the top 10 trends for this year. And data fabric is now one of their big top 10 trends for this year. They see this as a really key thing for organizations moving forward. And it's something that hopefully you've heard from your account teams over the past few years anyway from a NetApp standpoint, but we believe it's critical to how companies are going to change the way they're working. The thread throughout all of today has been around data. What's fundamentally changed here? Back when I was a young lad starting out, back in the days, we went in and we talked about hardware. We talked about who's got the fastest disk, who's got the most memory, who's got the fastest CPUs. And organizations looked for hardware. They wanted to know what you were doing, how fast you could do, what was the next set of disk you were going to come with, who's using the best CPUs. And organizations deployed their solutions based on the hardware. That changed over time. Good at clickers. And software became more prevalent. Oracle databases, people wanted to understand what they could do with Oracle. Microsoft were bringing out applications that could be used in different ways. And that became the reference point. People wanted to understand from an application-centric world what they were doing in their organizations, how they're going to deploy new applications, what application can you support, how can you work with things. And these are conversations we saw regularly. How could we come in and help support from a protection point of view, keeping things running from a DR point of view? And we were having those conversations all the time. What we're seeing now, though, as we said throughout today, data is becoming the key driver for organizations to really develop, really drive forward, and really come out with market differentiation. But that in itself brings in challenges. Because people are looking at data, you can look at different ways of deploying things. We talked a lot about the hyperscalers. You can deploy in multi-cloud and public cloud. You can build your own next-generation data center where you're given that functionality. Or you go with traditional enterprise IT. And if you just think about the data and just start picking random things and different teams and different projects using different areas, you end up with data silos. You start limiting your ability to utilize that data and gain value from it. And this is where a data fabric is different. This is where organizations need to start thinking how to bring that data together to be able to access it, regardless of how and when you're going to deploy it. In financial services, it might be that for some use cases, for some teams, a cloud environment is absolutely the right way to go. But there's going to be times, it might be you're testing something, you're trying something new. You're not sure if you want to go with it, so you try it in the cloud because it's easy to spin up and spin down. But you need to bring that back on-prem. That project's going to go live. Having that fabric where that data is connected gives that ease ability to move that data where it's needed at the right time. So from a NetApp point of view, we've changed as an organization. Hopefully you've seen that with some of the conversations today and also conversations in the past with us. We're really changing. We're making some big bets ourselves. And cloud is a big one for us. From our point of view, every conversation, whilst it might not end there, typically starts with cloud. All organizations are looking at cloud in some way. So we've made really big bets around this. And we're seeing that paying out in the main hyperscalers, the big 4 hyperscalers, are betting with us. They're asking us to be involved with them to help support you with what you're doing to create a data fabric. And that's really key. Because that's not us going to them and saying, let us kind of get on your coattails. That's them understanding that you as an organization need to have flexibility in what you're doing. You need to be able to have this fluidity of data where you need it. So that's a key thing for us. And what we can also then do is progress that to deliver, whether it be a multi-cloud environment, because again, a lot of organizations don't just go with one cloud vendor. I speak to a lot of the customers where, yeah, we bought in with Azure, we're still doing stuff with AWS for these certain projects. Or we've got a 2-vendor strategy, even in the cloud. Again, moving natively between clouds, they're not going to provide that functionality. We can help you ensure that if you decide today AWS is your vendor of choice, but you've got a new project that spins up, or they're cheaper and you want to go with Azure, to make it easy to move over. And that's key. The other side of it is hybrid. You might decide, I want to do a cloud model, but I want to use cloud more from a compute perspective. But the data, I want to sit more on-prem. Giving you that ability to keep and retain ownership and sovereignty of that data, and deploying a hybrid cloud model is also key. And why is cloud becoming so important? Again, there's been lots of studies shown today, different numbers from different people. One study that when looked at and asking customers what they're doing with cloud, the numbers are quite scary in a way, in how quickly people are getting into deploying applications, live services on the cloud. You've got a lot that are thinking about it, a lot that are trying it, but a massive amount of organizations have live running services in public cloud now. And you heard the comments earlier on. Regulation is quite often an excuse and not reality. I think internal compliance is more of an issue more often. But more and more organizations are looking to cloud and running things live. Another aspect to that data fabric that I put up earlier was you might like the idea of running a cloud environment, but because of whether it be in internal politics, whether it be to do with regulation from regulators or whether it be to do compliance, you can't run or you don't want to run in the cloud environment now. So we give you that ability to create your own cloud, to act as your own service provider. That was something else that was talked about earlier, mentioned earlier. A lot of organizations, bless you, want to act as a service provider to their internal customers. Give them an ease of use of acquiring the services that you're providing with them. They're used to going home and using devices and accessing things online really simply and easily, and they come to work and expect that same ease of use in what they're doing. So one of the ways that we're doing that is around HCI. And what we've done there, we've been around for a long time, as has been talked about. We've been working with large enterprises for many years, and we've tried to take a lot of those experiences and understand that as large enterprise organizations, you want simplified operations. You need this to be easy. You want independent scaling. You need to be able to scale the things that you need when you need them. And also the fact that you typically don't deploy one thing on a box, one application, one use case, or one team or one department. So providing a multi-tenant environment that can run mixed workloads is absolutely key to how we're looking at deploying and using HCI. And then we're still seeing a lot of applications and a lot of organizations that need engineered solutions. Running things on-prem in what's classed nowadays as more of a traditional environment, whether it be a SAN or a NAS, but having on-prem kit that they can spin up for certain requirements. And the thing about that is you need to make sure that anything you deploy now, with the way at the pace of technology and the change of technology, that anything you deploy now is future-proof. There's no point saying, okay, we've got this application that still requires on-prem, deploying it, and in 12, 24, 36 months, having to throw it all away because the technology's moved on, or we've actually agreed that we can go to cloud now. So again, giving you the capabilities to deploy something today that meets the requirements of an on-prem solution today, but is cloud connected and gives you that future-proof technology to deploy when things change, when your requirements change, when the business moves on. And that's a key thing for us in terms of that whole data fabric. It's deciding what you need to deploy for today and making sure it's something that will work as you move forward. And why is that still such a use case? Everyone talks about cloud so much. There's still a lot of apps that are coming out now around things like Splunk for analytics, Docker and Kubernetes for infrastructure, NoSQL and Mongo around databases that still really, really play well in that traditional space. Especially with the new technologies around in-memory that are coming out, that sort of technology. But again, you don't want a solution that's a point solution that in 12 months' time is out of date and useless and you can't do anything with. So that's why for us, having those three different areas, whether it be a public cloud and working with the hyperscalers, whether it be building your own on-prem cloud, like a service provider type model, or the traditional data center is absolutely key to a true data fabric and making sure they all link together. And I think, and this is where, for me, a good example of a data fabric comes in around AI. Just as an interesting one, I know you're talking about some of the use cases earlier on. I was lucky to go to the GTC event last year. I know that they've just run the one this year in the US. And in the insurance space, I found a really interesting use case. An insurance company in the US now are coming out with a solution. And this is where we talk about AI from what it's going to do from a business perspective and how it's going to change the business and how a business is going to evolve. This was how the users can benefit from AI in a clear way. There's an insurance company in the US now that is working on the ability to take your phone, wander around your house with the video on. So it's taking a video of your TV, your stereo system, your PlayStation, all of that. Send the data back and will instantly give you a quote for your house insurance. So you haven't got to fill out all this information. I've got a bicycle that's this, I've got a camera that's that. And using AI to provide insurance quotes. It's a really different way on how the industry is changing. And also, just before I go on as well, the other thing as well is autonomous vehicles is a big thing around at the moment. But the knock-on effect, I think, that people haven't really caught on to yet on the other industries it's going to affect is huge. Autonomous vehicles, what's that got to do with financial services? Well, you then start thinking about buying cars. You start thinking about insuring cars. If a car is being driven autonomously, how do you insure that car? Well, today you insure a car by paying a premium every year for a car that 80% of the time is sat on your drive doing nothing. From an insurance point of view, if that car is only be driven via AI, then every time you get in that car and you program where you're going to, why not have it connect to the insurance company and get insurance just for that trip? It's a different way that AI can benefit the end user. So from a financial services point of view, we've talked about some of these already briefly. But we're seeing around things like data loss prevention, fraud detection. That's a big use case for AI already. Consumer services and investment, that's growing all the time. And customer service, how can it really help customers get better value? And then recommending new products. A lot of financial services now, part of it is how can you recommend products and things that you come out with to your customers. And AI can help match patterns, match people's spending, and come up with things that may be of worth. And we do that, again, going back to partnership, working with a big ecosystem around people like NVIDIA, around Cisco, who are another part of the AI stack that we work with. Because it's something that we all need to work together to help provide you the ability to come up with these infrastructure internally. From an ONTAP AI point of view, we've again looked at where we come from. We've looked at the expertise that we've built up over the years working with you around different large enterprise solutions. We've come up with a proven architecture that works with both the DGX1 and the DGX2 solution. So NVIDIA themselves are developing and changing the way they're working and increasing their capabilities. So we've made sure that we've got that capability in there now. We're making sure it's simple to deploy. Data scientists, as was mentioned earlier, hate having to wait around for things. And also, they cost a lot of money. You don't want these expensive data scientists sat waiting for things to happen. You need to make sure that they're working as quickly as possible. So making sure that the solution is deployed as quickly as possible to get them working is key. The performance and scalability. We talked about this from a performance point of view. DGXs are absolute beasts. But you've got to make sure you can get the data to them as fast as you can. If you can't get the data there fast enough, then you're paying for something that you're not getting value for. So we need to make sure that we provide you with something that does that. And the thing for me is the integrated data pipeline, which is where the data fabric really starts to play. As I said, getting the data in the center is absolutely key. It's crucial. Going through this process of training and inference and retraining to make sure you're getting the results you expect is only going to be done by providing that DGX and the GPUs as much data as possible, as quickly as possible. Without that, it's all but useless. So having that fast bit in the middle is absolutely key, and the core is absolutely key. But it's more to it than that. You've got to get the data there in the first place. That's not something that's necessarily simple. You need to be able to collect the data and get it into the core, so from the edge devices. There's capabilities to deploy small versions of ONTAP, for example, in remote locations to gather data, send it back to a core central location, and get that into that core system. But then over time, that data becomes stale almost. You can't keep using the same data all the time. You want fresh data. But from an FSI point of view, you can't just throw it away. You need, again, going back to regulations, you need to make sure that you can show what you're doing. So you can't just delete it. But you don't want to leave it stuck in the middle in the core where it's on the fast storage with the DGXs. The capability through a data fabric to move that data out to a cloud platform or to an S3 object store. So again, freeing up space and freeing up capabilities in the core and not wasting that resource. And that, from a data pipeline, for me, is a really good example of how a data fabric can work in practical uses. So I guess the question for me is, how can we help you develop your data fabric further?